So there we go. So welcome everyone to the next in our series of winter webinars. This evening we are joined by Andy Malchiodi, who has come to talk to us about mixed formation skydiving. So he is a world champion in free fly, a 12 times US national champion in free fly and MFS, and he's dabbled in VFS as well. So he's going to tell us all about mixed formation skydiving. I'll hand over to you, Andy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for the opportunity to have a discussion with your audience about MFS. It's really exciting because we have been trying to make inroads with the international community for a while now, and it's tough because anyone can watch MFS and think to themselves, wow, that's really cool. Like, that's a really neat looking discipline. I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to do that, etc. But it's a very different thing to admire it from afar and then go through the effort to bring it to your federation, host some test events, all the things that are necessary to actually bring it to fruition. And it takes someone with a passion. So I was very excited when you came to me and expressed just such a passion. So hopefully together we can help introduce this to the UK skydiving community and just get some inertia and some momentum going with the entire international community to bring MFS up internationally. So thank you for the opportunity. For everyone watching, I'm led to believe perhaps it's a lot of newer jumpers, some people who are coming up. So I'm going to try to speak in terms that are as easy to understand as possible. If I use any language or nomenclature that is over your head, make a note of it. We can definitely address it in the Q&A afterwards. So I want to start with just the facts here. So MFS is a formation skydiving discipline with 2 flyers and a videographer. So 4-way, belly to earth skydiving, vertical formation skydiving, 4 flyers, 8-way, 10-way, 16-way. Those are all formation skydiving disciplines. MFS is no different. It's just that it has 2 flyers plus the videographer. But it is the only formation skydiving discipline to feature all 4 primary flight surfaces in the same dive pool. So that's belly to earth, back to earth, feet to earth being head up, and head to earth being head down. And at its most basic, MFS can be simply 2-way belly to earth formation skydiving. And at its most advanced, you could see all 4 orientations in the same skydive. So the thing about MFS that's special, one of the things that makes it special, is that it can serve as a roadmap through your entire skydiving progression. And whether you're interested in it because you want to compete, or whether you're interested in it because you just want a tool to make your skydives count, to make your progression make sense logically, you can use it for that. And if that's an abstract concept, it should become more clear as we progress through the presentation. So it's a discipline that grows with you. It's a great way to give your skydive structure. Okay, we all know skydiving has never been accused of being inexpensive. Okay. The thing that is free would be your visualization that you can do all day, every day. And that is a tool that is taught no matter what your skydiving discipline, okay? And if you are looking for a teammate, and I use that term loosely, I use that term casting a very wide net. Again, it might be a teammate to compete with. It might be a teammate that you just plan to go to the drop zone with on the weekends and get the most out of your skydiving possible. often this is lost on people, but if you go to the drop zone all weekend and you do 10 skydives, okay, you just spent your entire weekend to practice a sport that you have a passion for, but you got, less than 10 minutes of practice that whole time. So it's just so important to maximize each and every second of the skydive. And so when you find that teammate, they need to be of a similar experience, a similar passion with similar goals, and of similar financial capability. But skydiving is not cheap, as we know. And with that person, and I'm imagining a lot of the people watching maybe only have 100, 200, 300, probably less than 1,000 jumps, okay? If you're looking for a way to build your skill set, build your foundations, then you can utilize MFS at its most basic. So again, there are a lot of points within the dive pool that are just both on the belly, okay? Then there are points that are one on the belly, one on the back. There's only one point presently with both on the back. Those points could keep you busy for a long time, okay? And what I mean by this first bullet point is, excuse me, if you find yourself really like enjoying the belly flying, you're like, I like this belly flying stuff. I think I'd like to do it with 2 other people. Okay, well, in that example, MFS sort of just funneled you into 4-way formation skydiving. And that's great. If that's what MFS offered to you, so be it. Okay. Let's say you continue with your teammate, your buddy, and you got up to a point where now you're doing some of the vertical points, the head up and or the head down points. And you find yourself thinking, I really enjoy this vertical stuff. Not so much into the flat stuff, but I like this vertical stuff. And MFS served as a funnel for you to start enjoying vertical formation skydiving with 4 other people. That's great too. Okay. And if you take it to its logical conclusion, you will start with your buddy doing the flat, the belly back, and the vertical head up, head down in the same skydive back and forth. And you are pursuing then MFS to its most advanced state, with sometimes all 4 orientations being experienced in the same skydive, depending on the draw or how you engineer the flow of the jump. Okay, so if you don't know how to fly vertically, it's no problem. If you like to fly vertically and you don't really care about the flat stuff, you can engineer it, just to serve that particular skill set. It's what you want to make it. It's very flexible in that regard, which is, other formation skydives couldn't necessarily say the same thing. Okay, on that point, segueing from there, it's there's a lot of unique characteristics within MFS. Okay, firstly, just plain old logistics. All right, we already talked about if you find that other human that matches your experience, goals, financial capability, you need to hold on to that person with a tight grip, because that is, bar none, the best way to progress in your skydiving, whatever the discipline. If you just are going to go hammer out 2 ways with that person working on MFS or anything else for that matter, if you can just hammer away 2 ways, best way to go. A lot of people imagine they want to do a 4-way team, and that's great. But if you've ever tried to find one other person with those matching characteristic, much less 3 or 4, it's difficult. There's no reason to wait. If you find one, hey, you got one, you can get started. Again, whether it's to feed MFS to its logical conclusion, or if it's to just use it as a training tool to branch off somewhere else. And then, just because you find that person doesn't mean your schedules are always going to line up. If you try to line up 2 schedules, that's hard enough, much less 3 or 4 doing a bigger team. Okay. Durability, small plane, no problem. So a lot of drop zones in Europe. My understanding is, and you guys in the UK are one of, if not the biggest drop zones. So maybe it's not so much an issue where you are, but other places in Europe, if you only have a small airplane, then that's not going to be an obstacle for you to train, which is nice. It is the easiest barrier of entry. Okay, so again, I already sort of touched on this, but if all you know is two-way belly formation, you did that in your AFF, you did that as a student, like you already have a foundational knowledge about how to do two-way formation skydiving. So straight away you can launch into the simplest form of MFS, which is not something other disciplines can say. Let's talk about the camera flying slot. Okay, I call it a skills position because it very much is a three-way team. In other formation skydiving disciplines, sometimes the camera is more of a documentarian. I'm not trying to say it takes no skill or not a lot of skill, but I will say the MFS camera slot takes considerably more skill to do well. Okay, so it's a way to sort of keep it fresh. Let's say you do have two other friends that are participating in this journey with you. Trading off the camera slot is a cool thing. And then you can just compound your skills that you're working on with the same one or two people. And it is a skill. It requires a skill set unto itself, which is nice to have in your toolkit. If you've ever tried to film a two-way belly formation, it has a tendency to slide around, unlike a four-way in any orientation, because the four-way just has the the cross bracing, if you will, elements in play that tend to keep it from moving around too much. That isn't present in MFS. That two-way could move around a lot, especially if you are mixing the orientations, if you're flat and moving to vertical. If that transition isn't done in the best way possible, it could move a lot, really challenging the camera flyers. So that also is a cool and unique thing about MFS. And what I mean by this last bullet point, it's the only formation discipline that demands you actually skydive. And what I mean by that is, of course, every discipline will benefit from skydiving. But with the exception of 10 and 16 way, it can really, a large percentage of the training can be done in the tunnel. And you go into the sky, maybe you sort out your exits and whatnot. But with MFS, assuming you are mixing the flat and the vertical, you can't really do it in the tunnel. You can, in the sense that you can see the engineering, you can see how it works, it is beneficial. But going from vertical to flat, you can imagine you're going to blast up in the tunnel. And if you come back vertical, you can do it, but it doesn't at all feel realistic. It doesn't at all feel like it does when you skydive. So, maybe that's neither here nor there. I kind of feel like it's a little bit of a badge of honor. You can take from it what you will, but it's the only formation skydiving discipline that you can't almost exclusively practice in the tunnel, which I think is kind of cool. So the state of MFS, we are about to celebrate our 10th official year in the United States. We had its test event in 2013 and the first official year in 2014. I was one of the people who sort of aggregated all the existing points to create the MFS dive pool back then and present it to USPA and explain to them why we wanted it as its own standalone discipline, because there was a version of MFS that sort of existed within the free fly dive pool, excuse me, the free fly discipline for years. And then it ceased to be. That's a story for another time. But suffice to say, that was my motivation and the catalyst for me to sort of package up MFS as its own discipline and have it stand alone. And it's been wildly popular since. But the U.S. remains the only country where it is an official discipline. Other countries, to my knowledge, and I could be not 100% right on this, but to my knowledge, maybe some countries have elements like two-way vertical formation skydiving, but not necessarily mixed elements of it within their nationals, but no one does exactly what we do. And that is going to be necessary to get some cohesion there, to get some formulaic things going on with countries doing the same thing to elevate it to the international stage. All the way back in 2018, I did speak with a ISC representative. At the time, the impression I had been put under was the international judges imagined MFS to be like a junior VFS, that it was sort of a little bit of a novelty act, but it didn't necessarily belong on the world stage. And when I spoke to this gentleman, I brought the top VFS flyer in the world to back me up in explaining to him that MFS is in fact does in fact have its own identity and does deserve a spot on that world stage. So, he heard me out, but nothing has really happened since. I wrote chicken or egg here because I asked him what would be the preference of the international delegation. A bunch of countries start doing it on their own and it's a ground up approach, or would the ISC from on high decree that now we're doing MFS? And it was, undisputably the former. So it will take, the larger countries around the world to get this thing off the ground. And there is cause for excitement because since this world meet has moved from Israel for obvious reasons to now to the United States, we are doing a MFS exhibition at that world meet. The finer details still to be ironed out, but basically everyone who is capable of flying the open dive pool is going to be invited to come take part in it. And it is our intention to show that to international judges, competitors alike, and hopefully spread the word. Okay, if you haven't seen MFS before, I just included a 2-minute video here, highlight reel from my team's training this past year. If you guys want to check this out real quick. So that's the belly. Sorry about the jitteriness, but you can see how the flat to the vertical flows. The camera flyer really does the job in sort of providing the illusion that the fall rate doesn't change, but of course it does. And although we're flowing through all these points, the belly points themselves are not terribly advanced or technical or difficult, and those are the things that any new jumper can participate in. That probably suffices. Apologies for the jitteriness. Did not do that in rehearsal. Okay, so keeping up on all things MFS, if this has intrigued you guys at all, sorry for the not very easy to remember Facebook group URL, but that's what it is. That's the Flight Shop MFS Cloud League, where we sort of serves as a hub for the entire community. And then if you want the rules in the dive pool of MFS, specifically at the USPA website, SCM is the Skydivers Competition Manual. And that has all the chapters to all the formation skydiving disciplines. And lastly, I didn't put it on here, apologies, but if you want to watch that video that we just showed and a bunch of others, there's hours of MFS video. Just search my name, Andy Malchiodi, on Vimeo. Vimeo is where I host all my videos, Vimeo. That will take you to my channel and you can watch MFS to your heart's content. But that is the conclusion. Thank you again, Laura, for the invite, and thank you all for listening. I hope everyone got a lot out of it.
Thank you so much, Andy. That was brilliant. Really, really appreciate you taking the time to do that for us. I have the links because I'm an MFS nerd. I already have the links to your team's video that you shared there, which I will send out to everybody after this. I will also reshare your Facebook group as well, so everybody will get a copy of the link. But yeah, that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. If anyone does have any questions for Andy, please feel free to throw them into the chat for us now. And while I wait for you guys to do that, I do have questions of my own. So, as somebody who is really wanting to do MFS, me, and can't yet quite do head down, where would you say is the best place to start? Would you say focus on being able to do all the components first, like the head up, the head down, the belly, the back, get all of those nailed, and then start looking at MFS? Or would you say that people can start with the disciplines they can do, try the dive pool for just those, and then add in later? What would you say is the best way to do it?
Well, I feel like you're trying to make a distinction, and I don't think that's so necessary to do. If you're doing two-way belly, that is part of MFS. You might not yet be adding the different orientations. You might not yet be adding anything mixed, but that's okay. It's not a binary choice. Like, it's just a thing. One layer builds on the next, and it's not as if you're not doing MFS because you're only sit flying or you're only belly flying. It's all part of it. And then once you start mixing it, it's just another layer of the same thing.
Cool. I like that. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Someone like yourself, because correct me if I'm wrong, but you have a pretty strong FS background already. So from there, you should have a pretty strong learning curve to add some of the head up components, or certainly the back flight components. And then, you're working on your head down individually. And once that's to a certain level, then you can just slowly start integrating it in with whatever combinations, seem the most practical.
Nice. I love that. I'm looking at who's on the webinar live right now, and we have got a real mix of a couple of people who are sort of brand new to the sport. And I guess the advice there for them is that you can start doing this now. It's just two-way belly FS if that's all you've got in your toolkit right now. But there's also quite a few people on here who are really good at free flying. So for those people, what would you say is the barrier to people getting into it? Because one of the things I've noticed since I've started talking about MFS is that quite a few free flyers go, oh yeah, I've tried that in the past, I've had a go. Why do you think it hasn't caught on as much around the rest of the world as it has in the US?
Well, firstly, I when they say they've had a go at it, I doubt they've done a sequence from the dive pool. They may be, oh, I went head down to belly once, but it's not necessarily part of the dive pool per se. And if it was, maybe it would have been more alluring. I don't know. But to answer your question, I use the phraseology of chicken or egg in the presentation because smaller countries particularly, they aren't excited to have their athletes putting their energies towards something that is not at the world meet. You know, larger countries that have a big talent pool, like they're not so concerned about it. But if there's not a stepping stone and a goal to having the competition, it's dissuading, like even people who aren't like super keen on competition, it's still nice to have that as the end of the road for the season, like we're going to train. Yeah, it's for ourselves. We don't really plan on winning, but we want to go to the competition. We want to have something to aim for. And if you don't have that in your country, then you might have a go at it, like you say. But if there's no practical, tangible goal at the end of the road for the season, it's demotivating a little bit. So, countries having it will make a huge difference.
Nice. I like that. And I guess the showcase that you're doing at the World Championships is hopefully something that can entice British jumpers to aim towards that. I know for me, I'd love to be able to come. And the fact that you said all we need to be able to do is the dive pool, all we need to do. I'm really, really motivated to go and learn that so that we can get involved. So hopefully some other free flyers are feeling the same way.
Yeah, like I said, at the world meet level, there is no sub class. It's just open class only. So you would have to be comfortable executing the open dive pool. And like I said, I don't have the finest of details available. They're not available to me even yet. But my understanding is it will be open to anyone who wants to come represent their country. And I hope that's going to be true, even if you don't live in that country. For example, there's a lot of Brazilians and that live in the US that are US citizens, but if they want to come represent Brazil, like that's fine too,
Yeah.
Those are the finer details that still need ironing out, I think, but rest assured it is everyone's intention to be as inclusive as possible so we can have the best showing possible.
And I guess something else that I've listened to kind of webinars and podcasts that you've been on in the past, and just from talking to a lot of free flyers over the years as well, one of the things that can be quite tricky if you want to compete as a free flyer is that with it being an artistic discipline, sometimes it's really hard to know what the judges want and how to score well versus something like MFS where the points are there. They're there to see, so you go and score as many points as you want. So it's a way of competing that doesn't rely on that artistic element of it, which might make it more appealing to some people.
Oh, sure. I mean, for an in-depth discussion on that, you can link to my podcast with Sam that on the Fall Risk podcast. Delve into that deeply, but yeah, for sure.
Nice, that's brilliant. We've got a question that's come through on the chat from Yash and Emily, who say, what are the specific safety aspects of doing MFS? Not 100% sure what they mean there, but do you want to give it a bash?
Yeah, so not sure where they're coming from with their experience,
Yeah.
but anytime you take on vertical speeds, obviously the obvious things, AADs, at least one, if not two audible altimeters, that would be the first thing. And then, until you probably don't want to try the over under vertical blocks until you have done some of the vertical randoms and some of the vertical blocks that do not require over under things. In the advanced dive pool, for example, they do mixed, I believe it's 5 mixed rounds and 3 only vertical rounds, something like that. But point being, they don't do double head down to flat. At least one person has to be sit flying prior to the flat point. And that's a sort of something to try to mitigate safety concerns as well, because that's conceptually a slightly lesser fall rate change. Someone is just going like that from head up to flat, as opposed to when you're head down, there's like a twisting component to it to maintain your heading, just a little more advanced, a little more with technical skill sets. So those would be the things off the top of my head.
That's great, thank you. And I think, yeah, Yash and Emily have said it from head down to belly must be tricky. So I think you've covered that really well. Thank you very much. We've got another one from Liz Ashley, who has tried some MFS here in the UK. And she says, can you tell us about the MFS scene in the States? You said it's been going for a decade, but is this something that has grown at small drop zones, or is it just happening at the larger ones? She also says, how developed is it? Are there many people that coach it, or is it just yourself? And she says, here in the UK, we're very much still just figuring it out from puzzling the dive pool between us, which is fun. But yeah, she's just wondering kind of how it is in the US.
So I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's definitely trended up for the last decade, not necessarily in a straight line. And then it depends on how you want to look at it, right? Because it only takes 3 people to make a team. So, if you have 10 teams and a VFS division has 6 teams, it's both 30 people. Which one is doing better? You know what I mean? Do you judge it by the number of teams or the number of humans? But it kind of goes to a broader question that I've pushed to USPA a lot, which is doing a marketing campaign that makes sure lesser experienced people know that nationals is for them too. I remember when I was a young jumper, the idea that, are you going to go to nationals? I'm like, what are you talking about? That's not for me. But it is. There's a lot of room for younger jumpers to participate. And again, not necessarily to go win, but a tool to make your skydiving better. Maybe you're not like the most competitive person, but I assume you want to get better at skydiving. And if you do, like, training for a competition is a great way to go. And it doesn't have to be to win, doesn't have to be to be super competitive, but it's a great way to improve your skydiving. So is it all that I wish it was at small drop zones, medium drop zones, large drop zones? No, I think it could always be better and it can always be more. But that goes to a larger question about making sure younger jumpers know that these tools are available to them and that nationals is by all means also for them. As far as coaching, I mean, for myself and my teammates that have, 8-time national champions, like, we're sort of the top of the totem pole with the coaching, but other people have taken it on as well and have even taken it. Michelle from Seeing Double MFS team, she has gone with Matt Fry to Guatemala to help teach their population. And there's the Matrix MFS team out of Chicago has done a lot, modeling after what we did at Skydive Arizona with the Scrambles events, to try to get more people involved. So a lot of the teams that are training seriously are doing their part to spread the word and offer their coaching, which is great. So it's spreading slowly but surely.
That's awesome. That's so cool. And I guess, like you say, competition is a good thing to aim for. But it's not everything. You can just do this because it's really, really fun. We have one more very quick question for you because I know we're quite short on time. But Liz asks, where does it go in the exit order?
It's a good question. Depends on the draw. You might be practicing an all flat draw. If that's the case, you would go out wherever the belly flyers go out at your drop zone. If you're doing an all vertical draw, you'd go out where the free flyers go out with your drop zone. If it is a mixed, then you'd likely go in the middle somewhere. It's a little bit of a logistical question, and it's dependent on each drop zone and each drop zone's exit orders and the nuances of what each group is doing. But generally, that's sort of the first questions you would ask or first things you would identify.
That's awesome. That makes sense. Well, thank you so much, Andy, for taking the time to explain MFS to us. Hopefully, as a result of this, some people are feeling a bit more inspired, a bit more interested in doing more than just giving it a go. Let's get the dive pools at the drop zone. Let's share that link around. Let's really give it a try. And hopefully, I will see you in October. MFS Showcase at the World Championships. Thank you so much for your time, Andy. Thank you, everyone, for coming to watch. Bye for now.